one of the main reasons I invested in Palantir and why I'm an investor in the stock and plan to continue to buy it this entire year, essentially, is really around the commercial side of the business, right? I'm hugely bullish on the commercial side of the business, and I believe every Fortune 500 company in the United States of America is going to have to consider using Palantir within the next few years. At least consider. Doesn't mean they're going to have to use it, but I think they're going to have to at least consider using Palantir. Okay. But the government business is still the big dog business, right? And you got to think about recessionary scenarios, right? Commercial, let's call it, just regular companies, they can pull back on spending because maybe they don't have the money to spend on, something like a Palantir. And they're like, are we sure we're going to get our ROI? And companies are real tight with budgets when things are tight, right? And they're afraid to take new risks. Government money's always there. That money's always there. And so even in a, let's call it a downturn, a recession, anything like that, like Palantir is still going to be able to collect contracts and do big numbers because of their government side of the business, right? And so that's kind of the beauty. And I know some people have talked about they should split the business, like government should be spun off and that should be its own stock, right? And the commercial business, I don't believe in that, okay? I believe in keeping the employee forces together, the businesses together, and I think it's going to be ultimately a stronger company. I think there's going to be some time periods when the government business is lagging, right? And some could make an argument that the past year has been that, where the government business has been like, kind of almost holding back the company, it seems like, right? And then there's going to be certain times when the commercial business maybe is holding back the company a little bit. And it just depends on you're going to go through different time periods of expansion in kind of government spending and expansion in commercial spending, regular companies. And sometimes it's going to be a deceleration of spending in different segments. So that's just my thoughts. It's almost like listening to Tesla stock analysts. Like almost none of them even understood Tesla for years and years and years. And honestly, still a lot don't understand Tesla and what's even going on there, right? And with Palantir, I think it's like a whole other level of just like analysts are clueless on what's going on with that company, right? Like you got to understand, especially when it comes to analysts, there's different levels of analysts just like every other profession, okay? And so if you're a doctor, there's some doctors that are horrible. They couldn't diagnose a cold from a broken toe, okay? And there's some doctors that are okay. And there's some doctors that are amazing, phenomenal. They're like geniuses, right? There's some accountants that are bad. Some accountants that are okay. Most are going to be okay. And some accountants that are great, right? And there's some stock analysts that are horrible. There's some stock analysts, many are just going to be okay, meh. And some are going to be great, right? And that's the thing you got to understand about these professions. So when some analyst comes out there and says, oh, it's not a big deal, I don't know, like what do they even know about these stocks? They're covering likely a ton of different stocks. And these people are just working at 9 to 5 and just can't wait till they clock out. Like that's the bottom line with that. Do you think these analysts are out there working overtime? Give me a break, man. They're the first ones on Friday to say, okay, is the boss looking? Can I sneak out of the office? Give me a break. Who's to say, especially with Palantir's valuation on the floor like it is right now, who's to say good old Mr. Softy isn't going to swoop in and make some sort of investment? Like Microsoft could buy 10% of Palantir, 20% of the company like that. It'd be real simple for them, especially right now, this year, while the stock's on the floor like this. It wouldn't be hard for them at all to acquire 10, 20% ownership, maybe even 30% ownership if they want to take it that big. I think they would be happy with 10 to 20%. We'll see if that actually happens, but I wouldn't be surprised because obviously Microsoft wants to get more and more in AI, right? They wouldn't have made the move with ChatGPT if they didn't. And so I could see that happening, and Microsoft has a history of doing this. Remember who saved Apple. Who saved Apple? It wasn't Steve Jobs. It was Microsoft, actually. Steve Jobs was a huge component of the savior, right? But it was actually Microsoft that actually bailed out Apple and gave them the money to get through. Now, obviously, Palantir's in no financial jeopardy as far as that goes, like Apple was, right? But just Microsoft has a history of buying into other companies before their valuations go to where they're supposed to go. I believe if Microsoft kept all of its shares it had in Apple, I believe that stake alone would be worth, I believe, hundreds of billions of dollars today. Hundreds of billions of dollars, if I recall, if they would have just kept all their shares they ever had in Apple instead of selling it many, many years ago like they did, right? And so they're trying to get in ChatGPT early, right? Who's to say, like, why not get in Palantir right now, right? The valuation's on the floor. You're likely not going to get the stock, I can tell you, cheaper than this over the next many, many years, right? So you have this year in front of you when the stock's still on the floor and no one has a risk appetite for it, under $10 a share. For Microsoft to invest a couple $1 billion into Palantir would be like nothing for them. That's like pennies. That's like me buying a can of Coca-Cola or something like that, man. That's nothing for them. So Palantir under $8 a share here today. Just barely under $8 a share, under $8 a share nonetheless. But huge news on two different fronts in regards to Palantir today, okay? So first one up here, Palantir expands Microsoft Cloud computing pack to government agencies. Palantir on Wednesday expanded its cloud computing partnership with Microsoft on federal government contracts. Palantir stock fell on the news, but obviously the whole market is down big. In addition, a government procurement arm, FedRAMP, has approved that the Palantir cloud service using Microsoft's Azure cloud infrastructure. This milestone expands Palantir and Microsoft's strategic partnership from the private sector to the public sector, bringing the best-in-class cloud components to the federal marketplace. Now, an analyst on Palantir stocks basically said, "We do not view the Microsoft Azure partnership as significant. Palantir already offered its Gotham and Foundry applications on AWS, Amazon Web Services," okay? So here's my opinion, okay? Probably not the hugest deal in the world, right? By the way, that analyst is a negative analyst on the stock. They have an underperform rating. Not the biggest news in the world, but it is still positive. I can tell you, like, is this a positive or negative? It's certainly a positive, right? Is this necessarily a game changer for Palantir? I'm not so convinced it's a game changer, but does this matter for Palantir? Absolutely. If you talk about expanding anything with companies like Microsoft, it's good news, okay? It's good news. And so, like, the fact that anybody would get tied up into, like, oh, this isn't a big deal or something like that, it absolutely matters, okay? I can tell you that. Would you rather have deals with Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, or not have those deals? Of course you'd rather have those deals, right? So they matter. Even if it's only a few percentage of revenue it helps a year, it's still a few percentage points. It still matters in a significant way for a company like Palantir. I mean, this is a company that did $595 million of revenue in 2018, $742 million of revenue in 2019, over $1 billion in 2020, $1.5 billion in 2021, and nearly $2 billion this past year, right? Gross profit, 430 mil, 500 mil, $740 million, $1.2 billion, and nearly $1.5 billion in gross profit last year, right? And obviously, Alex Karp and the team basically just said that the company is expected to get to full profitability on a yearly basis in 2023 and beyond, right? You might disagree with the valuation. You might say, oh, I think it's overvalued. It should be $5 instead of $7 or whatever, okay? But to say it's not even a real company for a company that's pulling in almost $2 billion a year this past year, right? And has that sort of gross profit, I think is just insane and just disrespectful overall, okay? So, you know, you can say a lot of things about Palantir, but to say they're not even a real company is just, that's a little much, okay? A little much in my personal opinion. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think about that. That was pretty wild, okay?